All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. Everyone, if you want a packet, you can take one. If you want to take some to other people, we have plenty. So good morning. Welcome. Thanks for coming. Something completely not even closely related to my presentation. I don't know if you've noticed on the app, they're putting up those polls for those awards. Be sure to vote for people on those. I created those awards with Pastor Jacoby, so we're really excited to give out those awards. So vote on the app and nominate people for those. Going back to actually why you're here, this is how a medium-sized church implemented big church ideas, children, youth, and family specifically. We're doing like a whole series on them, so I'm sure you've seen the beginning of that title quite a lot on the app. And I'll show you a slide at the end of all the other ones you can go to or send your people to if you found this to be beneficial. But the whole reason we do this is my 5th time coming to Best Practices. It's Senior Pastor Jeremy Jacoby's 9th time. So we've been coming for quite a while, and we've gleaned a lot. But a lot of them in the beginning were mega churches talking about all these awesome things they can do with all their tons of resources and capabilities that we don't have. But we've taken a lot of what we learned and applied it. So I'm going to share with you kind of everything that we do and exactly how we do it, and hopefully you get some ideas. Even if you take away just one idea, then that's kind of fulfilling its purpose of how you can apply it into your context. If you want these presentations on your own, you can go to that QR code that's in your packet. You can also take a business card that has them. I've uploaded, I think, our senior youth retreat schedule and like some things like that, but if there's any other resources you want to see, I can drop them into that Google Drive and you guys can have access to that. My name is Alexi Pelissari. I am the Director of Christian Education at Summit of Peace in Thornton, Colorado. I started interning there in 2018, called in 2019. It is also my home church. So what I did is I graduated with my undergrad just in I call it a create your own major because I couldn't decide what I was going to do. So it was literally just liberal arts. Came home from college, did not know what my path was going to be. I wanted to be an event planner at the time. And started getting involved at the church as the junior youth director. Hanging out with middle schoolers is not what I thought I would enjoy, and I loved it. So I came to Best Practices that first year, 5 years ago, and Pastor Jacoby kept saying, you should look into this DCE thing. You should really, you seem like you like it. And I was like, I just graduated. I'm not going to 4 years of college again, for my undergrad. That's not happening. So I went to a session on it, and I really liked it. And he was talking with me about it, and I said, if there's a master's program, I'll consider it, right? At least, kind of progressing, feeling like I'm moving forward. The next session I was in, I sat next to the director of the master's program at Concordia Irvine. So I was like, okay, Jesus, I get it. Got it. So that's what I did. I graduated with my master's in theology through Irvine and have been doing it ever since, and I love it. It's amazing. I've gone to 2 mission trips to Cambodia, which have been fantastic, but my role is 0 to 18 and families, so I do kind of everything at our church. I will say my passion leans towards the youth, for sure, but it's amazing. And I'm a typical millennial. I'm not married, and I don't have kids, so my pet is my child, and plants are my pets. So I love gardening, and I love everything like that. So that's just a little bit of who I am. Who we are, like I said, we're in Thornton, Colorado. Oh no, I do this all the time. Go. There we go. And we are kind of by name medium-sized. So we have an average of 250 in worship. That was pre-COVID, so it's getting back up to around 200 now. Like most churches, we've dipped. Our typical members, it's very suburbia, so it's a lot of nuclear families, a lot of 2 working parents and things like that, pretty traditional style families for the most part. But we only have 2 full-time employees, so it's me and our senior pastor, and then the rest are part-time. So that's me, that's Jacoby. We have Katie Runkle is our music director, so she's doing a session as well. Sarah is technically part-time, but she's the backbone of all of us. She's the director of operations, and she does not work part-time. And then we have 2 assistant pastors that work part-time, PJ Stolman and Mark Jansen. And Mark is doing a presentation as well on senior ministry, so if you have anyone that's interested in that, And then Molly just started, so I put her face over our old finance manager, thinking that the old one will never see this. But she's here as well, so you might see those faces. Also, Pastor Jacoby's wife is doing one on marketing. Her name is Julie Jacoby. She's awesome. So that's just who we are, a little bit of context for you. Also, I think it's important to kind of understand our vision, because it's what everything is based around. So we, a number of years ago, I don't know exactly how many, we were very, very like siloed. Everything was kind of not communicating together. Every ministry was doing its own thing with very little continuity. And the group of leaders came together and decided we really need to focus on what our vision is, what our mission is, and then from there, build up all of our programs. So we kind of dismantled everything and started from scratch and built it up. So we have Grow, Share, Live is our kind of mantra, and everything you're going to see today is going to be categorized into one of those three areas. Hi. So Grow is our growing in spirituality through worship, through education, through Bible studies, things like that. A lot of the education side of it. Share is sharing in fellowship with one another, so building up relationships, being a community, being a family. And then Live is serving out into our community, and through service, through being a blessing to others, things like that. So you're going to see that over and over and over. So I wanted to make sure you understood that. The other thing that's going to be super important that I'll talk about a few times is we have what's called life groups. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Faith 5 formation model, but we took that and we put it into our context. So you actually see already the Grow, Share, and Live are a part of that. We connect through highs and lows, and then, of course, we pray together. And the way these work is they're seasonal, so they're 3 times a year. They're short term. So we do 8 to 12 weeks for 8 to 12 people. So it's capped at a certain number so that we can be super relational. We started those 5 years ago. And the kind of intention behind it is short-term commitment for people to try and get them involved in a deeper relational aspect. And eventually, some of those groups really want to stay together. For example, millennials is a good one. We started a millennial one, and now they all want to be together all the time. So that's becoming kind of a more permanent, long-term missional community, I think is what we're calling that. But that's our life groups, and that's our life group model, and that will also be reflected in pretty much everything I talk about. Because again, we want everything we're doing to be clear and communicated to our people. So we have a lot of continuity. So why talking about CYF, children, youth, and family, matters is that I think family needs are really different today. If you even just look at the generation of Gen Z and what they need is wildly different even from millennials, right? There's higher anxiety and depression. Now you have this awesome COVID and all the effects that that has brought on. School shootings are a huge thing. Like, I'm talking to my kids all the time, and they act like it's not even, like, they're just like, oh yeah, we had to lock down today because there was someone that like threatened, right? Like it's just normal to them, and all that anxiety brings. Although there are still nuclear families are the primary, there are increasing, divorced families and non-nuclear families, right? Grandparents living with their family, like parents and kids, and single parents, right? There's increasingly nuclear families is lessening. But we read Sticky Faith. That's a really great resource if you need one. At the very end, I'm going to resource dump and idea dump on you. And so at any point, if you have resources and ideas, that's when we're gonna talk. But we read Sticky Faith, and it had the statistic that 50 to 70% of all youth raised in the Christian faith leave the faith after high school. And then eventually some of them do come back, the 30 to 60% eventually come back, but there's still a huge gap of what about the rest, right? And that's like the big question to answer is how do we instill faith in the kids so that they stay in the faith after high school? And what their study showed was that parents are still the number one influence in a child's faith, right? So that is still the place that is really where they grow spiritually and talk about Jesus and get to know Jesus. The other thing that they said was that if you have 5 adult mentors that are not their parents, that they feel comfortable talking to, they're exponentially more likely to stay in the faith after high school. So those relationships with adults is huge. So that is kind of where our foundation for our programs came from, is how do we get them to connect with adults that they can come to and talk to when they don't want to talk to their parents, right? And so we're going to talk about that. So how we changed is we formed a team, because at this point I wasn't a DCE, right? So this is all pre having me there. I was the junior youth director at the time, so I was a part of this process. But we formed a team, we called it Yo-Yo, which was for Year of the Youth, and we just had fun saying it. And we, at that point, had a very traditional Sunday school with the teachers in the classes. We had a junior youth that was loosely but not quite connected to confirmation. We had a very education-heavy, head knowledge-heavy, traditional style confirmation, and kind of a disconnected youth. We didn't have a great youth program, and so we all kind of came together. And what we did is we evaluated all of our programs and talked about where are the areas that, what are we doing well, what are we not doing well, and what's completely missing, right? Like, what aren't we doing at all that we should be? And then we talked about if our youth program was perfect, what would it look like, right? Like, what would be the things? And of course, it's all about relationships, right? Like, kids would have a safe space to talk to us and things like that. Families would be super connected to one another. Parents would have a backbone for a safe space to share, to lean on one another, to give them resources, things like that. And then we set our goals from there, and we built phases that we then implemented. And one thing to know is I feel like I always get this, because this is my 3rd year presenting, I always get people like, if we had a DCE, this would be great, right? But there wasn't a DCE when we did this, right? So I don't think that is a requirement. Of course, it's nice for, continuity, but if you build a team, this can happen. Yo-Yo itself was formed in January 2017, focused on children, youth. It was not at that point focused on family, which I'll talk about, because I think if I could do it over again, that would be where I started, right? But we'll talk about that challenge. And then it was leaders, like I said. We met monthly at that point, and then met after we kind of formed our plan and started getting into the trenches and everything. We met less and less, but we still all made sure we were all communicating so that we knew what was going on. We could partner with each other. The programs could kind of be more seamless together. And at that point, for 2 years in a row, everyone on that team actually went to best practices, right? Because it was a great resource builder of what are all the things we can glean. Sorry. It's too early to talk. So our phases. We started with reimagining Sunday school, and that's kind of still been a little bit of a challenge. So we tried a few different things for Sunday school, changing up that model, not thinking so traditionally about the different classrooms and things like that. Just for context for you guys, we have an 8 o'clock service and a 10:30. So then at 9:15 to 10:15 is when we do our education hour, adult Bible study and Sunday school. Confirmation, we completely flipped. And actually after this session, the 10:30 session is all about confirmation. So I'm not going to go into a ton of detail with that. I'll give you guys kind of a snippet. But we totally flipped our confirmation at that point. And then junior youth, we made kind of way more integrated and a part of confirmation. And we don't actually have what I would call a junior youth, right? And I'll tell you what we do have. Then we went to senior youth and started working there, right? So we were starting kind of from the ground up of our youngers to our olders as sort of our thought process. We implemented camps. We call them Camp Summit. They're summer camps that replaced our Vacation Bible School. They were more community focused, more focused on making a cost-effective learning experience for the community. Because there are a lot of camps. They're in our area, and they're wildly expensive, and so we wanted to kind of provide for our community that way. Then we did Sunday school take 2, because what we were doing was still not great and still not working. And we did family ministry, and family ministry technically happened out of necessity through COVID, right? It was not something we were prepared for, and that's where I've had this experience now to say that should have been where we started, because had we gone into COVID with a strong family ministry, I think we would have been, and our parents and our families would have been in a better position, right, and better equipped. So it actually became a necessity, but we still did it. We still have a good and strong family ministry now. And then camps, take 2, we didn't do camps during COVID, and so we actually had an opportunity to kind of reimagine them and make them more focused on what the community needs and what we are capable of. And we're kind of working on college ministry or gap ministry. I don't really like to call it college, but that age range, right, of those college age kids, we're slowly building that up, and it's kind of being built as these seniors have now graduated that we've been connected with and better equipped. We're starting life groups with them, right, just kind of dipping our feet in the water to keep them connected. So what we've learned are kind of the big takeaways here is prioritize the family. As you can tell, I'm very passionate about starting with the family. Because, again, that's the number one faith influence for their kids. And relationships matter, right? That sticky web is super important. And one of the best ways that you can instill relationships is through small groups across your youth programs, your children and youth programs, to build in that for the kids to have one-on-one relationships in a small group setting. Best practices is one of the absolute best place to find and get resources, right? Not only do you have these sessions, but you have, book recommendations, curriculum recommendations. So everyone that you hear, just write it down and look into it on your own, because there is just a pool of knowledge here. And that has been incredibly helpful for me as well. And then volunteers are more important than the positions that they fill. And I know that sounds like, okay, obviously, right? Like we care about people. But I think our older mentality of it was that we wanted these roles to be filled, and we had to find someone to do that thing, rather than there's a person who's really passionate about youth, and what do they have the capacity to give, right? Like what level of involvement do they want, right? And kind of fitting it that way. Has been really beneficial to us. And if you don't have, if you have this idea that you want to do it, but you don't have the people to fill it, then maybe it's not the time or the path, right? I think coming here, I'm always like, oh, it'd be so great to do some of these things, but there's not anyone that would be passionate about doing that in our context, right? So it's not realistic. One of our camp themes that I would love to do would be like a gaming or coding camp, right? I think that would be super cool for the kids. They would love it. There is no one in our congregation that I know of that has those skills to lead that camp. So it's not on our agenda right now, right? So taking those kind of things into consideration. So what has worked for us is we have successfully kind of umbrellaed our entire program into one holistic ministry. I call it one ministry to rule them all. And we've created consistent and constant communication. So instead of all of these random spurts of, hey, do this, we kind of have streamlined our communication, which has helped parents make it so much easier and clear for them, because they are berated by schools and social media and everything all the time, that the more simple you can make it and the more consistent you can be, the better off your parents are going to be, and the better off, more clear your programs are going to be. And then, again, I already said, fitting roles to volunteers, and what we've realized is kind of making things more bite-sized. So instead of, hey, you are going to be, well, we do have senior youth director, so that wouldn't work, but you're going to be the director of all of this all year. Instead it's, maybe help out teaching, sign up for where you want to teach this year, right? And we do a little sign-up thing. Depending on the level of involvement that your volunteer wants, right? So my one ministry to rule them all is we kind of have CYF as the umbrella. And then we have cross training, which is for pre-K through 4th. We have confirmation, which is 5th through 8th. We have crew senior youth, which is our high school age. And then, of course, we have our family. So Sunday school is no longer a term that I try to use. We're kind of phasing it out to help families understand that it's not Sunday school, it's cross training. Confirmation, we don't have junior youth anymore because now confirmation has absorbed that, and we've taken some of that so that there's way more clear continuity for that age group. And then same with crew youth. We do have Bible studies for the crew youth, but it's all called crew youth. This almost works, except for we do have Camp Summit, but that's because it's community focused. It doesn't really fall into the same category, but it is for that younger age range, right? And then we are still kind of slowly building up our college ministry. So I'm going to talk to you about each of them. If at any point you have a question about each of them, please feel free to ask. So our cross training, what we've done is we've broken up Wednesday nights and Sunday nights. So for all of our programs, we have stuff on Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights for each of those 3 sets. So Wednesday nights are education focused, and so that's kind of replaced our Sunday school. We use a curriculum called Dig In, which is pretty awesome because you can break up the lessons into what you want it to be. So the ones for Wednesday nights are more Bible study focused, and then Sunday morning, they're more fun focused. And so we only have an hour on Sunday morning, and so it's lots of fun. We do the same time as confirmation for both of those. So Wednesday nights, it's 5:45 to 7:30. That's the same for confirmation, and almost the same for senior youth, although they're a little bit different. And then Sunday mornings, again, it's that 9:15 to 10:15. So that's where you break it out into Grow, Share, Live, is you have Wednesday nights is where it falls into the Grow category, right? We have a life group format kind of for both of those. So going back to that connect, grow, share, pray, live. We follow that format and we use Dig In to kind of build that format. And then we do something, it's kind of an outlier called youth-led worship. We started doing that back when we had formed Yo-Yo because we heard of that idea here and kind of talked through that with some people. We loved it. We did it way too often. And so I think we started doing it like quarterly, and it was kind of a lot for us, just even coordination-wise. And so we've actually pared it down to twice a year, and it kind of builds a little bit more anticipation. It's a little bit more fun for the kids. Yeah, so Sunday mornings, they take over both services. So we have them do everything. I'll talk about it a little bit more, but yeah, they'll read, they'll greet, they'll be communion assistants, where I'm trying really hard to find, I guess we'll see if we find the right senior youth to kind of do a mini sermon with Jacoby. I think would be really fun. They take over the praise team for our contemporary. They sing, they lead the hymns for our traditional service, and they do everything. And we do that twice a year. We have the teens take over the tech booth specifically, so even every children, youth, and are involved in that. And then Sunday mornings, it's all relationship-based. It's still that life group format. We don't do any like specific special events for the littles, besides maybe we do a Christmas party that is adult only. It's a Christmas crawl, and we offered babysitting. We had a ton of fun for those kids, but I wouldn't necessarily say that kind of falls into this category. And then for living out their faith in the community, we actually have them partner with Confirmation or Crew, which is our senior youth, to do whatever service projects. So Confirmation, the 8th grade small groups have to decide and plan and implement a service project of their choice. And so oftentimes the cross-training will help them with that. As part of some of our programs, we'll do like letters to soldiers, and they can help with like drawing photos and stuff. So they get involved in kind of those more bite-sized ways for serving. Any questions on, yeah. So Wednesday night is 5:45 to 7:30, and we feed them first with Confirmation. Yeah, so they'll do highs and lows, right? Because that's our connecting. They'll do the highs and lows. And then the grow and the share. The grow is the Bible study focus, and so that is primarily on Wednesday nights. They do a little devotion on Sunday mornings, but then Wednesday nights it's much more kind of in-depth. There's activities based around that. The share, I would say, is actually more on Sunday mornings, like the just spending time together relationally, applying the little devotion to their life, right? Not in ours. So we're small enough right now with our cross training that we keep them all together, and we'll have a couple teachers for them all. But as we grow, we would do the small group model. Probably have 1 to 5. Averagely, so actually our Wednesday nights are more than our Sunday mornings. So Sunday mornings we've only been having 7 to 8 kids, and then our Wednesday nights it's around 15. Yeah. So it's pre-K through 4th for cross training specifically. And they come Wednesday night. And then on Wednesday night for confirmation, they come 5:45 to 7:30 as well. But then we have been implementing parent life groups at that time. So that they could all come. What do you do during Lent? So for cross training, we don't do it during Lent and Advent because there's just such little time. For confirmation, because we are still trying to get in that education focus, it's just a condensed schedule. And then the expectation is that our services are part of the confirmation program. So I very lovingly repeat that to my parents and everything and say, join your kid for service, right? Like kind of an expectation. Doesn't quite always work. Yeah. Any other questions on that? Okay. So confirmation itself, like I said, we're doing a whole session on confirmation. So I'm just going to give you guys a snapshot. What we found, what I really was not loving about our other program is we didn't really solve the problem of Sunday school for our confirmation kids, right? They're already getting such an education-heavy confirmation on Wednesday nights. They hated Sundays. Like they were like, why am I like constantly in class, right? So one of the things I really appreciate about our new model is that Sunday mornings are way more fun for them, like way more relationship. We do a little devotions, just like we do for cross training. We do a little devotion, and then we mostly do games, and just totally goofing around. I found escape rooms that were like Bible focused. So there was like a parables escape room, a salvation escape room, and that's been really fun. It's basically just trying to solve codes, right? Like it's nothing super crazy or intensive, and they really like those. I'm hoping I can find more out there, but that's been really cool. If it's nice out, we'll go out. We have this like patio area, and they'll go and they'll toss a ball around there. Just really simple. It's only an hour, so it really doesn't take much planning and time. And what I have been doing for the devotions for that is we're not using a specific curriculum, but I typically tie it to whatever the sermon series is. And then for Advent and Lent seasons, I'll do whatever that series is, which is also closely linked to, I'll talk a little bit about it, but I do tip of the week for families in my weekly emails. I'll send them a family thing to do. And typically they're very closely linked.
Is your Wednesday night year-round, or is it just like the school year?
It's just the school year. And actually, so is our Sunday mornings. So we won't be doing it in the summer. That's partly volunteer, because of volunteers. A ton of our people, they travel. So our programs go way, way down for Sunday mornings and participation. So the only thing that we'll keep doing in the summer is once a month, our senior youth will meet and do stuff. We're going to the National Youth Gathering, so obviously that's a huge time to spend together. But yeah, we will not be having it in the summer, and that's actually this is the first summer we're not going to be having Sunday school. So we'll see what they think of it. I call it connection hour because I think that's a better description of what that time is connecting. But our Wednesday programs, yeah, they follow the school year for cross training and for confirmation. So they start in September and they end in May. Yeah. So they also do youth-led worship. And then one of the things just to mention is, like I said, we do small groups as part of our confirmation program. So a confirmation guide is with a set of kids, and they pick the grade. Typically what happens is if the 5th and 6th grade guides choose to be with them, they'll typically follow them through for 7th and 8th, but it's not a requirement. So you could just say, for this year, I'll just do this grade, right? Oh, we don't have an 8th grade one because they moved. Okay, well, I'll do 8th grade because that's only a school year commitment, right? But a part of that small group is in 8th grade, they have to decide what service project they want to undertake, and they'll do all the planning for that, and then confirmation and the other programs will support it. So one of the ones is they did like a VBS for residential community, right? So they did, and they spent half the day just in the general, and then they spent half the day with the memory care, and they planned all the activities, and they scheduled the volunteers, and it was largely confirmation and senior youth volunteers helping with that. Any questions on confirmation? They do them as a small group. So their guide helps them kind of walk with them. I also kind of make sure everything is going well and help communicate that, like some internal stuff. But yeah, their guide is kind of their primary resource and expertise, right? Yeah, that's a good question. Any others? All right, so Crew, senior youth, is a little different. It's kind of flipped. So where Wednesday nights for the other two are the education, Wednesday nights for our Crew youth is more relational, because we found that at that age they really need that more. Was that me? Oops. And then for Sunday mornings, they love that hour of heavy, deep Bible study. So that's what they've really liked and responded to, so we kept that. The time for Wednesday nights is a little different. They're doing 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., and they are actually, this is the first time we've been able to do it, but we wanted to start this semester meeting in homes rather than at the church. So everyone else meets at the church, but they meet in a home of one of the youth, and they do that on a monthly rotation. And we were starting this in January, and they do the first and third Wednesday of the month, right? So it's every other, basically. And we tried to do this in January, and the first 3 were canceled because of snow. So they did their first one without me on Wednesday, and I didn't even get to be there, but sounds like it went really well. So trying to, again, be very, very intentional about the relationship building. And so that's their Wednesday nights. We also do fun seasonal events. So we did a Christmas party that was all based on Elf, which was phenomenal. So we did like a movie watching party, and we'd pause it to do completely ridiculous things, like the spaghetti eating with syrup, and oh, it was awful. And we'll just do kind of random seasonal events. And again, that is kind of life group formatted, so they do highs and lows all together. I'd say Wednesday nights, we probably have 10. It's a little less because they have, a lot of them have sports and stuff. And so then Sunday mornings, it's like 20. It's probably doubled, yeah. And then again, I don't actually have a set curriculum for those Sundays. I sort of decide, like, we let the kids kind of pick what topics they're super interested in, kind of guidedly. So if I hear of a really cool resource that people really, really liked, I typically will pick that, but we don't have like a set something. We were using Grow. I think it's called Grow, Stuff You Could Use Ministry. We were paying for that. I think it's kind of expensive, but it does give you a ton of lessons. But they're not like, I would say, Bible study heavy, right? Like they're more topical of things that kids are experiencing. So it's a good resource for like Wednesday nights, not necessarily for us for that education. So at the end, if anyone has resources for that, that'd be amazing. And then they do stuff for the congregation. So things like we do a rake and run, where they will go to, in the fall, congregation members, especially our older members' yards, and they'll rake up all the leaves. They're caught 9 times out of 10, right? And it's pretty fun. We actually ended up doing it on Halloween during COVID because it ended up, I think Halloween was on a Saturday. So Saturday morning, everyone's dressed up in their like costumes and doing it, which was really, really fun. Things like that. They'll do community service projects occasionally. One time we made burritos and gave them to first responders. Things, just like small things that they find, and they do help with confirmation ones as well. And then we're on a 3-year mission rotation, so we go to the National Youth Gathering every 3 years, and then the other year, we didn't get to do this last year, but there's a district youth gathering that we do that is going to be mission focused. Like it's all kind of, we all kind of come together for the main stuff, and then we all go out and do service in the community in the Denver area. And then the other year, we do a youth-focused Cambodia mission. This has all kind of been discombobulated because COVID. So I'm not sure when we'll be able to go back to Cambodia, but we do yearly mission trips. And that year will be specifically senior youth and their parents will go. So that's kind of that rotation. Any questions on senior youth? Yeah. Yeah, that's why I bitterly put that at the bottom and not in one of our nice boxes, because we do fundraise year-round, and it doesn't really fall into Grow, Share, or Live. We mostly fundraise for the National Youth Gathering. So the Cambodia already has its fundraising system. They do a golf tournament is kind of the main thing that they do, so that's like once a year. But we try to do 2 to 3 fundraisers a year for the National Youth Gathering to try and keep the cost down as much as possible. We also go to the National Youth Gathering a few days early, and so entertaining the kids for those days is quite the expense, but it's super worth the fun, like getting to know who's in the group. So this year we're taking, Lord help me, 28 kids. I'm so excited. Is that you too? Yeah, so it feels daunting, but it'll be a lot of fun. So yeah, so they do it. What? It'll be daunting, but it'll be fun. It'll be fun. It'll be fun. Yeah, that's a great question though. Any others? All right. So our family ones, what we started doing in COVID, which was actually something I had been wanting to do, and this was my perfect excuse to do it, was family faith at home kits during the Advent and Lent season. That's an idea that I had heard about when I was going through school, and I was like, this is amazing, and Pastor Jacoby kept telling me no, and I said, fine, and then COVID happened, and I said, we have to, like, this is the best way to, like, get to our families, and we're keeping it because it has worked really well for our families. So what we do, typically, is during the Advent and Lent season, I work with the pastor who does the preaching for those Wednesday night services, Pastor PJ Stolman, and we try to find a sermon series that he likes and wants to do that also already has curriculum for faith at home stuff. And that has mostly worked, and if it doesn't have it, then we build it. But we've been able to use resources. Creative communications has been a big one that we've used. And so whatever sermon series he's deciding also ties to these kits that we give, and they're basically weekly devotions, sometimes daily devotions for the family, little activities for the kids. What I've started doing, because we want to open it up to all families and all family types, right? It doesn't have to be just with kids that are living in the home, is I make packets that have the fun projects and the crafts and stuff, and then I just have the devotion packet for them. So you can kind of, if you just want the devotion, you can still take that, and you don't have to take all the crafts and fun stuff that comes with it. So that's one of the things for Grow that has worked really well, and I did a summer road trip one, which was pretty cool as well. And I'm not sure if we'll do it this summer. It kind of depends on what curriculum is out there, right? Because we don't want to constantly be building everything on our own. And then we've started doing parent life groups on those Wednesday nights during that time that the kids are there, to be very intentional of your whole family can come and we have stuff going on. It's kind of slow to start, I think, because we have quite a few like disengaged parents, and so we're trying to reiterate that importance. So that is what we're hoping to do. I think we're starting with one a year, but I think eventually we'll do at least one a session, one a season. And then I would love to, but we don't have it really ready yet, to do a specific family one. So to do a life group, so 2 or 3 families get together and do the life group format of the 8 to 12 weeks connecting. But we're not quite there yet. We do quarterly fellowship events as a family, and then we do some community events. So we do Easter trunk hop is one of the things that we love to do, and I'll talk more about that. And we have a carnival, things specifically for the communities, families to get involved. It falls under this because we have things that are intentional for ours and then also for out in the world. Any questions on that? Cool. I realize that we need to get moving, so I'll try and go. We're almost done. So, like I said, if I could do this all over again, I would have started with the family. What we did when we first formed Yo-Yo and kind of built our plan is Pastor Jacoby did a whole sermon series. It was a 3-part sermon series on the importance of all this stuff, right? The importance of faith in the home. But I don't think we did a great job of then equipping our families to do that, right? We said, hey, do that, but we didn't walk alongside our families to do it. So I think making sure that, these life groups are a great way to help parents come together and share the different struggles and the things that they're going through, and for us to be able to listen to what are the things that you feel uncomfortable with kind of how busy are you, what are ways you can have faith at home in bite-sized, manageable things, and prioritizing it that way. And then offering resources of, here's some easy tidbits for you guys to use, I think would be huge and a really big help. The other thing, my big thing, is communicating consistently and constantly. And what I mean by that is that parents are so overwhelmed with stuff all the time. You have to be very, very clear and intentional. So we are consistent. This is kind of an example of how we use our life group format, both on Wednesdays and on Sundays for confirmation. So as you can see, the activities for the share on Sunday mornings are heavier, and then the education stuff, even the share stuff, is more based on whatever that topic they're learning. And that's kind of across all of our stuff that we do, right? So it's very consistent on what you're going to get. And we constantly communicate. So what's the one thing you see on all of those? This is the bulletin, the worship folder. This is the bulletin board, the website, the email, and social media. So it all has stuff about the elf Christmas party, right? So we're very, very out there as much as possible. In the marketing one, Julie talks about, she'll say that people, this is before COVID, people need to see something 13 times before they even remember it, right? Let alone then remember to sign up for it or to RSVP for it, right? So you have to be very constant in your communication. Some of the things that didn't work for us is over-programming. We tried to do everything, all these awesome ideas we had all at once. And everyone didn't understand why we were like, why is no one understanding what we're trying to do, right? Because we did everything. And asking families to come like every night, every morning, like so much is unrealistic, right? So now we pare it down and we try and do a few things really well, really intentionally. We did all church Bible study, which was supposed to be an intergenerational thing. I loved it. But it was on that Sunday mornings. Instead of the kids going downstairs and the adults doing a Bible study, we did it all together. And we did it, the best one we did was during Advent. So it was for those 3 weeks leading up to Christmas, and we used Advent Conspiracy. So if you think that that'll work in your context, that's great. For some reason, our members didn't like it. They didn't. because I think they loved the adult Bible study and that time and that intention, and I don't think they appreciated that getting taken over by kids. So it's okay. We offer so many ways for adults to be involved in the youth that's not necessarily something we had to have, right? Also, we tried to do small groups with a Sunday school where we had a few kids, like with an older kid, like with a middle schooler, would lead the small groups. The middle schoolers hated it. And then trying to get that many volunteers was really, really hard. And so that didn't work. And the other thing is, it's really important to change something and then wait, right? And let the dust kind of settle before you see if it works or not. I think we were a little trigger happy of, we're going to try this. Oh, that didn't work. Let's try this. Oh, that didn't work. Oh, let's try this. And it kind of got overwhelming for our volunteers. I think we burned out some unintentionally. And for parents, right? Constantly not knowing what's going on and what the expectation is was really hard. So now I would love to hear your guys' ideas. I've talked about the youth-led worship. We also do middle and high school retreats as part of our program. For confirmation, it kicks off the year, so we do that in August. And for our senior youth, it works really well to do it on a 3-day weekend. So we do it over Martin Luther King Jr. weekend, and it's normally snowy, and we can go sledding. But we do those. We have a summer camp retreat. We use LVR. I think he's doing a session and on camps, and he's awesome. So we always send a group of kids up there that want to get involved. We have the Easter trunk hop, which is basically trunk or treat, but for Easter. It was an idea I had before COVID, but then with COVID, it was actually really nice to have an outdoor event instead of the Easter egg hunting that every church in our area offers, offering something a little different. We had food trucks. We had members as families sign up to be a car and decorate their car Easter themed. And then we invited the community. We had like 400 for the first one come, which was massive for us. Like that was unheard of before. So we'll definitely keep doing that. And then again, those Faith at Home kits. And then we had families, a few families came up and said, can we just come hang out at the church on like a Friday night outside, like because we have a big yard space. And we were like, yeah. Like, is it open to everyone? And they're like, sure. So we advertised, and so many families just came to hang out on a Friday night. It took very little effort. The families all did the food and everything. I didn't have to do anything. I just showed up and had fun, right? Like, and it was completely volunteer driven, right? They said, we want to do this. It stopped with COVID, and they haven't mentioned bringing it up, but if they want to, like, absolutely, right? So that's been a great safe space. Any other ideas you guys have? Yes. Yeah. So we did it on like Nextdoor. We boosted it on social media. I'm not sure if that was because of COVID, like if we're going to accept less or not, but we'll see. No. So we've talked about if we added a third, if we would do that, and we've talked about doing that for our contemporary service, but we haven't ever pulled the trigger. So I'm not sure if we will. That's kind of what we were thinking.
So they worship with their parents after the children's message. They go out for like the 20 minutes or so. Little children's church and thing.
We're seeing a huge influx of very, very little, like young families with really little kids. And we've had a few guests come, and one asked, "Do you guys have like someone watching the nursery so that I could go into worship?" And I was like, no, but maybe we should consider it, right? Like that, it's a growing need that we're realizing. So that might start it accidentally, right? Yeah. Any others? And then I'm going to jump to resources. Okay, I'm just going to go through these since I've already talked about them. If you have questions on any of those, you can reach out. Resource dumping, so books. Sticky Faith is amazing. I love it. The 5 love languages of children has been really well responded. We did this as a parent life group, and they loved talking about this. They thought it was really, really cool. So it's the love languages, but it's specifically in the context of our kids' love languages. And Spiritually Vibrant Home is another good one. Someone actually recommended that to me. I don't know that I've even read it, but I've heard of it multiple times. So, Apps. Canva is a free graphic generator, so that's how we do the majority of our graphics. So just if you're needing some tool like that. Lutheran Hour Ministry devotions are really awesome. They have several apps that you can use, and so that would be a great resource to pull for tips for the family. Pray the Gospels is a devotion app, and then GroupMe is what we use for the National Youth Gathering, primarily for texting our teens as a group, and it is chaotic and amazing. And then curriculum. I love group publishing. I got to go tour their facility, so I extra love them now at the DCE conference. I think just what they do is amazing. We use Dig In from them. We've used Simply Loved is another good one. We've actually used their VBS kits for our camp summit, just as for theme ideas and things like that. We're not doing that this year, but they have a ton of stuff. Creative Communications seems to have a lot of family resources, which I really, really appreciate. And then Focus on the Family is another good one. I always get their emails. So, any other resources?
I want to make a note on Canva.
Yeah.
If you apply for the nonprofit, you get communion for free.
Ah.
So like graphics and
Yep.
the nonprofit status. You can get it for
That's what we do.
some letter from, I think, the Synod or something. I forget the exact
You can
process.
use, in that if your congregation has the Lutheran annual in the front of it, there's a copy of the, what is it, nonprofit status that the entire Synod has. A copy of that, as well as whatever federal ID and or state tax exemption your congregation has. And then you can sometimes like copy that on a piece of church letterhead that shows your actual congregation and what you do. Usually if you provide those two things, they'll approve you. The key is having the thing that shows that Synod overall encompasses that. If you don't, they'll turn you down.
Interesting. Yeah.
We're reading a book right now called Reimagining. Student ministry.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that one.
Talks a lot about how the importance of parents being involved in their
Yeah.
faith walk and how church and parents can work together. It's really good for kind of translate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that one a few times, so I'll definitely check that out.
The sticky faith, is that part of the sticky church movement?
I don't think so. I don't know.
I guess they're more associated with Fuller Youth Institute.
Yeah.
And, I mean, they've got a couple of other sections and stuff. There's another book they came out with called Growing Young.
Yep.
That's really good.
I'm reading that one now. Yeah. So I don't think so.
You know, called Rethinking Youth Ministries or something.
Rethink, yeah, student ministry. It's about having a parent leadership team. Have them kind of advocate.
Cool. Love that. Yeah. Love that. Cool. These are great.
One book that our small, well, I shouldn't say small because, but our youth ministry team has really enjoyed is Small, or Lead Small. So
Lead small.
it's by Orange.
Mm.
I got it recommended by another who uses it, and it's been phenomenal. For leaders to really see the individuals before them.
Okay.
Focus
Cool.
on them. So,
Sweet.
Lead Small is what it's called. Yeah, for really.
Awesome. Okay. So these are the other sessions. Obviously, we've done the first three, but the next one we're doing is confirmation. Not on there is a senior ministry one. It's at 10:30 on Saturday for a senior ministry. Pastor Mark Jansen is doing that. But that's all I have for you guys. Thank you so much for coming. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. You can message me on the app too. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, you're welcome.